Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Renee Sharon.
In our top story, Israeli fighter planes pounded two Hamas targets, wounding several Palestinians after rockets fired from Gaza hit the Hof Ashkelon region. The terrorist missiles caused no injuries or damage. Israel holds the Hamas rulers of Gaza responsible for all attacks launched from the terrorist enclave. In other news, Jordan's King Abdullah made a whirlwind 2-hour visit to Ramallah to hold talks with Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas. At the top of the agenda was the growing tensions between Arabs and Jews over the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Violence flared last month following the murder of 2 Israeli policemen by Palestinian terrorists. Arab riots erupted when Israel installed metal detectors and cameras at the site. Those security measures were later removed. This was Abdullah's first visit in 5 years and is seen as a signal to Israel that the Hashemite kingdom stands solidly with the Palestinians. It also comes amid strained relations with Jerusalem after an Israeli security official at the embassy in Amman shot dead a terrorist who had stabbed him in the chest with a screwdriver.
A 42-year-old Israeli man was critically wounded when he was stabbed by a knife-wielding Arab. The victim, identified as Niv Nehemiah, was attacked while working in a grocery store in Yavne. Graphic security footage shows the 19-year-old terrorist suddenly lunging at Nehemiah, stabbing him several times. The terrorist then fled the scene but was subdued by passers-by and held until police arrived. Nehemiah was rushed to a nearby hospital where he underwent life-saving surgeries. President Reuven Rivlin telephoned Nehemiah's wife to say the whole country was praying for her husband's quick recovery.
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee took a step forward in cutting aid to the Palestinian Authority, which pays salaries to terrorists and their families. The measure passed by a vote of 17-4. The bill is called the Taylor Force Act, named after former United States Army officer Taylor Force, who was stabbed to death last year by an Arab attacker in the Israeli coastal city of Jaffa. The committee chairman, Republican Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee, denounced the PA for having enshrined in law a system that rewards Palestinians who murder Americans and Israelis. The bill now goes to the full Senate for consideration. It's already been endorsed by Chuck Schumer, the Senate's highest-ranking Democrat, which virtually assures passage of the legislation.
A survey taken following the cold-blooded murder of 2 Israeli policemen by 3 Arab terrorists and the slaughter of 3 members of the Solomon family in Halamish last month reveals that an overwhelming majority of Israelis support the death penalty for terrorists convicted of murder. The poll conducted by the Midgam Research Institute found that 70% of Israeli Jews strongly or moderately back the use of the death penalty.
More than 2,000 American troops have been killed by improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, in Iraq and Afghanistan since 2003. Now Israeli innovation has come up with a way to thwart this low-tech terrorist weapon. Israel Aerospace Industries has developed technology capable of identifying IEDs before soldiers enter the danger zone. The SIMS, or Counter Improvised Explosive Device and Mine System, integrates optic sensors with radars. It's mainly designed to be used by patrol forces undertaking routine security measures. In addition, SIMS, with its above-surface and underground mine and IED detection systems, can be installed on a number of tactical combat vehicles, including tanks, armored personnel carriers, Humvees, and even so-called soft defenders.
The Hamas terrorist organization took advantage of the recent Arab riots on the Temple Mount to teach Palestinian children attending a summer camp a lesson in violence and death. For their graduation exercise, the youngsters created a mock-up of the Temple Mount compound. They then staged an attack on other kids who were dressed as Israeli soldiers. The younger children pelted the soldiers with rocks, while the older campers rushed in and killed those pretending to be Israeli troops. Hamas-run camps routinely indoctrinate young minds on the so-called glory of martyrdom.
It's called Operation Good Neighbor. For several years now, the Israel Defense Forces have been providing humanitarian assistance to victims caught up in the bloody Syrian civil war. Each night, Syrians in need of medical care, food, and clothing make their way to the border with Israel. There, they are welcomed by IDF troops. More than 3,000 men, women, and children have been treated. The medical care is provided free of charge. They are first assessed in an Army field hospital. The more seriously wounded are then transferred to one of several hospitals in the Galilee and center of the country. In the last year alone, the IDF also supplied war-scarred Syrian civilians living near the border with 360 tons of food, 456,000 liters of gasoline, 100 tons of clothes, 12 tons of shoes, 14,000 packages of baby formula and diapers, as well as generators and mobile caravans to use as clinics or classrooms.
Jewish leaders in Australia have condemned the decision by the Waverley Council to ban the construction of a synagogue because it could be targeted by terrorists. The council's decision was upheld by the Land and Environment Court, and the head of the local Jewish community, Rabbi Yehoram Ullman, said the ruling basically implies that no Jewish organization should be allowed to exist in residential areas. Others called it a sad day for Australia and stressed that it stifles freedom of religion and rewards terrorism. The council said that even if the design of the building was changed to boost security, it would still be unacceptable because it would be too unsightly.
Last week, Israelis marked the festival of Tu B'Av, the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Av. Also known as the Jewish Valentine's Day, the holiday dates back to the time of the Second Temple. The sages wrote in the Mishnah that Jewish maidens of Jerusalem would wear borrowed white dresses so as not to embarrass one who had no dress. The young women would dance in the vineyards while eligible bachelors gathered nearby in hopes of finding a bride. Today, Tu B'Av is a time when many Jewish couples plan their weddings. Mazal Tov.
At first glance, a new Israeli government video of a project in the Mediterranean Sea almost looks like a promotion for a luxury offshore development. But then it becomes clear that it's all about Gaza and the future that Israel is offering the impoverished Palestinian enclave. Intelligence and Transportation Minister Israel Katz released the high-quality production which details his prospective plan to construct an artificial island off the shores of the Strip to boost the territory's economy and connect it to the outside world. Katz says the initiative is aimed at providing an answer to the current nightmarish reality inflicted on the 2 million residents of Gaza by the Hamas terrorist organization that rules the area with an iron fist.
In business news, Israeli pharmaceutical company Neuroderm has been purchased by Japan's Mitsubishi Tanabe pharmaceutical giant for $1.1 billion. It's the biggest buyout ever for an Israeli firm outside of the high-tech industry. Neuroderm is a world leader in researching and developing solutions for disorders relating to the central nervous system, focusing especially on Parkinson's disease. The company believes its new innovative treatments will yield significant improvement for those who suffer from Parkinson's, and that Mitsubishi Tanabe's expertise will help reduce the time it takes to get the product on the market.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in a beautiful sunny day on our rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Rabbi Tuli Weiss. He is the founder of Israel 365. Rabbi Weiss, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Tell our viewers a little bit about what is Israel 365.
Israel 365 is your daily connection to the land of Israel, and it's sent out primarily by email newsletter to close to 300,000 subscribers all over the world that connects them each day to the land of Israel, the people of Israel, the God of Israel, through a Bible verse and a beautiful photograph and an entertaining video.
Yeah, they say in Israel that if you can read the newspaper, you can understand your Bible because prophecy is coming to pass right before our very eyes. How does Israel 365 take that into consideration?
So what we've done is we focus every day on a different news event from Israel. We have another website called Breaking Israel News, and we're presenting the latest news from a biblical perspective. You know, so many people in the world look at the Bible not only as a document that had great relevance yesterday as a historical text, but as a living, eternal document that is as relevant to today, to understanding today, and tomorrow as well. So when we interpret current events at Israel 365 and at Breaking Israel News, we're looking to interpret those current events from a biblical perspective.
There's a lot of fake news out there today, and Israel doesn't really get a fair shake in the international media as well. How do you combat the media bias on a daily basis?
So it's a great question. Media bias, especially when it comes to Israel, or fake news, when there's so much fake news that's aimed specifically at Israel. And that's why what we're trying to do is show not the fake news, but the first news, the final news, because we're looking at it from that biblical perspective. Or the media bias, everybody has a certain bias when reporting on events from Israel. Our bias is not liberal, it's not conservative. It's just biblical. And so what we do in journalism, so there's always, in an article, there's the lead paragraph, which answers the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. That gives you the basic overview of what the story is going to be about. On Breaking Israel News, our lead is a Bible verse. And so that is always the main aspect of the story. You can't understand what's going on the Temple Mount if you don't look at it from a biblical perspective, or the conflict with the Palestinians for that matter. You can't understand it if you only look back at 50 years of history since the Six-Day War, or 70 years since the beginning of the State of Israel. You have to look at this conflict that the Jewish people are having going all the way back 2,000 years by looking at the verses of the scripture itself.
We see a lot in the media that there's a real push to report on negative things happening in Israel, but there's actually a lot of good news coming out of Israel. There is our economy, which is booming. Tourism is up, high tech. Do you just focus on the conflict as usual, or do you also take a look at some of the more positive things happening in Israel today?
Right, absolutely. We focus on the positive. The mainstream media is only talking about, the problems that are here. So if you're reading the New York Times, or if you're watching CNN, you're going to think that this place is a war zone. When you come to Israel 365, you're getting a very uplifting message. When you read the news on Breaking Israel News, you're seeing a hopeful message that prophecy is being fulfilled every day here in the land.
When you start out with Israel 365, it was a small organization. Today it's actually quite large. What does the future hold for Israel 365?
Well, only God knows. We say that we're reporting prophecy news, or news from a biblical perspective, but we don't say that we know what's going to happen in the future. And that's actually, that brings up a good point. A lot of people will dismiss us in the mainstream media. They'll say, oh, come on, the Bible and news, they don't even belong in the same sentence. You're predicting. You're going to say, well, we know that we read the Bible and the Messiah is coming tomorrow. That's not what we do at Breaking Israel News, but what we do try and do is present a hopeful message, to understand that God has orchestrated the events that are happening here every single day. It doesn't give me inside information on what's going to happen here tomorrow morning, but what it does do is provides me and our readers with a hopeful understanding that even if things are not necessarily very simple, or when you look at them and things feel very chaotic here, God knows what He's doing, and God knows that there's a hopeful plan. As far as what is our next step at Israel 365, we have a lot of things. We have our Israel Bible. That's one of our initiatives. We also have a new yeshiva for the nations that people can learn from a Jewish perspective, a biblical perspective, more in depth. We have a lot of initiatives that all focus on Israel, and they focus on the Bible, and they're using God's technology, the internet and the innovation that's really coming here from the land, and we're harnessing that to spread the good news about Israel and the Bible to the entire world.
Rabbi Weiss, there are literally tens of millions of people watching the show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Thank you for staying connected with Israel. Thank you for praying for Israel. And if you're looking to do a little bit more, if you're looking to connect with Israel on a daily basis, so check out Israel365.com or BreakingIsraelNews.com.
Thank you, Rabbi Weiss, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren HaYesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Keren HaYesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. This week, we will learn about the righteous among the Gentiles. Throughout Israel's modern history, many Christians have risked their lives and the lives of their families to defend the Jewish people and God's covenant with Israel.
As the Nazis ruthlessly set about their demonic plan to eradicate the Jewish people, Europe became an accomplice to humanity's darkest hour. While the Nazi gas chambers and killing fields extinguished the lives of 6 million Jews, Europeans overwhelmingly turned a blind eye to the horror unfolding, or worse, became accessories to genocide. God's compassion appeared to have abandoned Europe, an entire continent devoid of humanity. Yet a handful of people refused to forget the Bible's teaching in Genesis 1:27. God created man in His own image. Unimaginably risking their own lives, these people demonstrated that even in Europe's sea of darkness, human kindness and mercy can shine through. Seeking nothing in return, these Christians jeopardized everything in order to save Jews from facing certain death. Often hiding entire Jewish families for months, sometimes years, they lived in constant fear of discovery and cruel retribution at the hands of the Nazis.
Et quand moi j'allais pleurer, si je puis dire, pour qu'on prenne les enfants, et quand je racontais ce qui s'y passait, qu'on arrachait les gens de leur maison, on lançait leurs vêtements par la cage d'escalier, on les emmenait par camion à Malines.
In appreciation of their remarkable deeds, these angels on earth have been honored by Israel as the righteous among the nations. Exactly how many Jewish lives were saved by these brave individuals, we don't know, but they joined the hundreds of thousands of Holocaust survivors that Keren HaYesod supporters helped extricate from Europe's inferno to reach Israel. They came from 51 countries, from all churches, from all walks of life, from remote farms, city slums, universities, high society, and beyond. They were bound by just one thing: the determination to preserve humanity in the face of all evil. Some of their stories are well known, the likes of Oskar Schindler and Raoul Wallenberg, but lesser known heroes too, such as Adolf Althoff, Father Hubert Salis, and Leopold Socha, showed the same unimaginable courage. All carried a bright torch of humanity in a Europe enveloped by moral darkness. Avraham Savion was just 9 years old when the war broke out. At the age of 12, he was taken in by a Christian family who risked their lives and the lives of their children to save this one Jewish boy. When word got out that they were hiding a Jew, they arranged for Avraham to be taken in by a church where other Jewish boys were hiding out as well. There, they provided for his every need until he was reunited with his relatives.
ז'אן דלין, הוא היה נסיך בלגיה, והוא הציל ילדים ממוות בטוח. ואחרי שעברתי כמה מקומות הסתר, פגשתי אותו פעם ראשונה בכנסייה בתוך הטירה. הייתה כנסייה פרטית שלו, שהכומר החליט לקחת אותי ולשים אותו נער כנסייה, זאת אומרת. אני עוזר, הולך אחרי הכומר, מחזיק לו את הגלימה, מחזיק לו את הנר, או דברים כאלה. משרת אותו בזמן שהוא עורך את התפילה. חסידי אומות העולם הצילו אותנו. אלו והנזירות והמורות וכולם הצילה אותי במיוחד. הגעתי למקום מנוחה אחרי מרדפים שנרדפתי כל הזמן. הם החיו אותנו, נתנו לנו חיים חדשים.
The righteous among the nations helped fulfill the divine wish to restore the people of Israel to their land. The descendants of those saved today number in the millions, building their lives in the Jewish state with the help of Keren HaYesod. Today, 70 years after the Holocaust, too many Jews still remain in distress and danger in perilous corners of the globe. Now is our opportunity to continue the legacy of the righteous among the nations by assisting in the rescue of these Jews to make a new life in the land of their forefathers.
Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Read your Bible. The city of Haifa does not appear in the Bible. The city of Tel Aviv does appear in the Bible, but it's not a city in the land of Israel. It's a city in Babylonia. Ashkelon, Ashdod, the major cities of Israel today, those are Philistine cities throughout much of the biblical period. What were the Jewish cities of the land of Israel during the Bible? They were Bethlehem. They were Jericho. They were Hebron. And of course, Jerusalem. The lands of Judea and Samaria, often referred to by the world as the West Bank, are the ancestral homelands of the Jewish people. They are our tribal lands in the way that members of Native American tribes would have tribal lands. And for anybody in the world to say that a Jewish person cannot live in his or her tribal lands would be unthinkable. Certainly in any other context, would not say a member of the Sioux Nation or of the Navajo Nation couldn't live in their native lands, in their tribal lands, would be unthinkable. So too is an unthinkable here. These lands are part and parcel of our Jewish identity. They are our ancient heritage, our patrimony. And as Israel remains committed to peace and understands that there's another people who also view these lands as their homelands, we will never, ever concede our right to all of these lands because they belong to us by virtue of our history, our tradition, and of course, of our faith. Judea and Samaria are the tribal lands of the Jewish people. Have any doubt about it? There's a book I can recommend. It's actually the world's biggest bestseller. It's called the Bible.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
I feel so fortunate that I came to this moment that I can tell part of the story, because for a family with 3 small children to survive the Nazi murder machine is a huge miracle. And this moment is also a miracle.
Rita is one of the 70 residents of the Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors, made possible by the ICEJ.
My name is Rita Casimao Brown. I was born in 1934. I'm 81 years old. I'm a Holocaust survivor. I lived in a little town called Turmont in Poland. In 1941, when the Germans came in, they first asked to bring all the valuables, the gold or the money. They pointed the guns and they hit some people. So there was no argument. Everybody had to bring everything. After a few months, the priest came and said they have to leave this small little ghetto. We were hiding in grottos, in the forest, in bunkers. My father realized we can't go on with 3 small children. We were all getting colds and getting sick. And he dug a hole underneath the cow shed. There was no room for me, so I was lying there. You see, like I'm wiped out. This is how we lived almost 2 years. It was the kind of life that was hunger and fear. Hunger and fear, and the specter of death always in front of your eyes. The life was a nightmare. And the only way I could escape was sleeping, because I dreamed of food and the cookies that my mother baked and the challah and Shabbat. This is what I dreamed, the little parties, and the unconscious was protecting me, because if I woke up, it was a nightmare. My father said we have to leave, and we went through a lot of things in crossing the border from the German occupation to the Russian. And then when I saw the tanks with the Russian army, I fell on the ground and kissed the ground, because I thought, it's the Messiah. My father said the Russians will be the Messiah. When we came into our town, Tourmont, it was like a ghost town, because a lot of the residents took over the homes of the Jewish homes. Everybody was just looking at us like a living ghost. I had this idea that I want to come to Israel all the time. When I saw the beautiful view of Jerusalem, I was so excited. I was reading in the books, and I was dreaming of coming to Jerusalem. And then I saw the view, the panoramic view of Jerusalem, and my heart palpitated. I'm so happy that my children grew up here. I'm so happy that my grandchildren grow up here. It takes a while to get used to accept that you have limitations. You know, it's not the same like you lived before. If people come of age and they need to retire, for Holocaust survivors, there's no other place. I don't have to worry about anything, like if at home the television breaks up or something is leaking or something like this, you call one of the guys, or you go to the office and it's fixed.
Survivors receive living assistance in a warm family environment, provided through partners like you.
So many Christians love us. One thing I think every Holocaust survivor doesn't want it to happen, that we should be forgotten. And you are the ones that make it for us an opportunity that it shouldn't be forgotten. So I thank you very much.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Renee Sharon, reporting from our studio here in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.